everyone, it's Jack from Cultaholic.com, and this is my rundown with major spoilers, I must point out, of next week's Raw and SmackDown Live. Now, for a variety of reasons, we're all on holiday, it's Christmas, we're not going to be doing Raw and SmackDown graded next week, but there have been spoilers announced. Why is that? Well, it's because WWE have pre-taped Raw and SmackDown this year. Obviously, last year, Raw was on Christmas Day, and I'm sure the wrestlers were delighted about that, and even more so like the ring crew and just people who didn't even get the benefit of the glory of being on television. They just had to set up a ring on Christmas Day. So sad. But this year, instead, Vince has, I think, developed a bit of a softer heart. He's pre-taped Raw and SmackDown. They've already taken place, and then Raw will air on Christmas Eve, and SmackDown will air on Christmas Day. But if you, like many of us, are going to be busy around that sort of time, we have a rundown of generally what happened. Now, I am speaking as someone who obviously hasn't seen footage of what happened. I wasn't there at either of the taped events, but I've read some stuff. So I'm fully prepared to guide you through what happened. Just before I begin, this news comes courtesy of a variety of websites online. I don't know which one to credit really, don't know which one did it first, but I'd just like to shout out maybe The Observer, Uproxx, 411 Mania, the usual sort of suspects. So Christmas Eve Raw begins with Elias in the ring, and he wants to play a Christmas song for everybody, but he's interrupted by Lashley Claus and his little elf, Lio Rush. I don't think they were actually dressed in those ways. That was just me trying to be funny. This set up the traditional Miracle on 34th Street match, which is basically a no DQ match, but Christmassy. I think there was even a spot onto Legos, or Lego as we call it in the UK. That's right, our plural for Lego is Lego. It's like sheep or fish. Now Elias picks up the win, cracking a violin, not a guitar, over the back of Bobby Lashley, because violins are more Christmassy than guitars? I suppose so. And then after the match, he douses Lio Rush in delicious eggnog. So that's all Christmassy and fun. Big babyface win to kick off Christmas Eve Raw. Next up, the Raw Tag Team Championship match. Obviously, this week we saw the Revival win the right to face the new champions Bobby Roode and Chad Gable. And then that match takes place on Christmas Eve. And the result is that the Revival have lost again. They are losers. But at least in this instance, it wasn't because, you know, somebody pissed themselves or because it was under Lucha House rules or any of the other things that have blighted the Raw Tag Team division recently. From the sounds of it, just a proper standard tag team match, which Bobby Roode and Chad Gable won after, I think, a roll-up. So Roode and Gable are still the champions, which is, you know, fine. Personally, I'd rather the Revival were champions, but at the same time, I think if Roode and Gable hold the titles, that's more of a platform for Bobby Roode to eventually turn heel on Chad Gable, because we all know that Bobby Roode should be a heel, and I'm baffled that he's been a babyface since debuting on the main roster. Next up, 6-woman tag team action as the babyface trio of Bayley, Sasha Banks and Ember Moon take on the heel trio of like Alexa Bliss's underlings, so that's Alicia Fox, Mickie James and Dana Brooke. She's still heel, remember? No, it was never explained why she turned, but she just is, alright? The babyfaces win this one, making it 3 for 3 for babyfaces on Christmas Eve Raw so far, but the heels will have their say because the Riot Squad come out afterwards and just kick the piss out of the faces. I'm not sure if they kick the piss out of them. They do a beatdown. So the next segment kind of confused me because various websites had reported it in using slightly different language. So I'm just going to read it. This is from Uproxx.com, which I believe is Brandon Stroud's residence. I love Brandon Stroud, one of my favorite wrestling writers out there. Anyway, Uproxx have said that Finn Balor defeated Drew McIntyre and Dolph Ziggler. Now this is very interesting because I thought that triple threat was in the future, maybe at the Royal Rumble pay-per-view or something like that, but no, they went for it instantly on Christmas Eve Raw. Finn pinned Dolph to win the match, McIntyre declared himself for the Royal Rumble, that's news, and got beaten up by Ziggler for trying to do a post-match attack. So in my head, that's going to be like, I'm going to enter the Royal... Finn's already gone because he's won. I'm going to enter the Royal Rumble and I'm going to beat up you, Dolph Ziggler. And then I don't know how, but Dolph Ziggler then fended off Drew McIntyre in a post-match attack. I'll be interested to see how that one pans out. Next up, Paul Heyman. Paul Heyman comes out for the festive period. Excellent stuff. It's not because it's the festive period, it's because obviously there's a big fall pay-per-view coming up in the next sort of month or so. We've got a little while, but Paul Heyman shows up to basically tell us all that Brock Lesnar is going to win. So that's a very Paul Heyman thing to do, isn't it? But Heyman does not have the last laugh in this instance because out comes Braun Strowman to intimidate Paul, who was unwisely shown up without Brock Lesnar. Strowman intimidates him in the ring, apparently plops a little Santa hat on his head and then leaves. So basically the gist of it is Heyman thinks Lesnar's going to win, Strowman thinks Strowman's going to win. You got to believe in yourself, kids. Another title defense on this show, Ronda Rousey defending the Raw Women's Championship against the number 1 contender, Natalya. Again, this week we saw Natalya win the right to face Rousey in that 6-woman gauntlet match. 8-woman, sorry, there was a lot of women in that match, in that 8-woman gauntlet match. No word yet on how good the match actually is, but I suspect it would be a pretty decent one because of Natalya and Ronda's close relationship in real life. Natalya, of course, helped train Ronda when she came through, but it was Ronda Rousey who picked up the unsurprising victory, securing another title defense successfully, this time against a fellow babyface in the form of Natalya. Next up, another Christmassy segment. This is Heath Slater versus Jinder Mahal. It turns out Heath's now a wrestler again, which is good. Not a referee, as Baron Corbin forced him to be. So it's Heath versus Jinder. The Singh brothers get involved and cause the DQ victory for Heath, but they go to beat him down, and then he's saved by none other than Santa Claus. It's Rhino dressed as Santa. I like that. I really do. I hope this is an actual moment on the show next week rather than like a commercial break, like dark segment or something. I hope this actually does happen. And I think it will. I think it'd be nice to see Rhino back dressed as Santa Claus. What's not to love? And then the main event, which sounds, to be honest with you, this sounds like a pretty decent Raw, especially like a special holiday themed one. But it ends on, to me, what seems like a bit of an underwhelming note. Basically Seth Rollins defeating Baron Corbin clean with the stomp. So maybe it'll be good, I don't know. If anyone can bring the best out of Baron Corbin, it's Seth Rollins, as we saw in that TLC match on Raw, actually before TLC, the show took place. So it sounds, to be honest, like a pretty decent episode of Raw, but we shall see how it all pans out on Christmas Eve. On to SmackDown now, which opened with 3-team tag team action, like the sort of match we saw at TLC, for example, when it was The Bar, The New Day, and The Usos. The lineups were a little bit different this time. It was The Usos, The Club, and Sanity, with The Bar at ringside because they're the champions, and The New Day at ringside because they're The New Day, reportedly dressed in Christmas costumes, so that'll be fun. The Club win that one. It looks as though they're going to get a title shot somewhere down the line, and to be honest, it's sort of probably their time to, because it's been a while since they've been involved in the title picture, so I understand why this has happened. Next up, a promo segment from R-Truth and Carmella, who show up dressed as Santa Claus and Mrs. Claus. I know you said Santa Claus and his wife. She's got a name, and that name is Mrs. Claus. What's her first name? I'd like to learn a little bit more about her. Daniel Bryan interrupts and cuts a promo, and I can't say what he said in the promo because it's brilliant heel work, but I don't, if there's any children watching this, I can't say what he says. I can't say what he says. It's the thing that we all know about Santa if you're an adult, but he said a nasty thing about Santa Claus that I don't have the heart to say on YouTube. Bryan also threw in some insults about AJ Styles and beat up R-Truth as well, but the content of that promo is really shocking. Imagine taking your kids to see the wrestling on Christmas Day, and then Daniel Bryan says the bad thing about Santa Claus. Can't believe it. Next up, a hell of a match by the sounds of it. Mustafa Ali versus Andrade Cien Almas, with Ali picking up the victory. I don't know how to feel about this because I imagine it's probably a really good match, but on the other hand, I don't want Almas to be getting buried now. I wouldn't mind if Almas had won this one. He's been on the SmackDown main roster for longer than Ali. He's also a former NXT champion, whereas Ali was in 205 Live, which I guess is seen as weaker than NXT probably in kayfabe. So I don't necessarily agree with this decision, but it's hard to be too mad when someone as talented and as captivating as Mustafa Ali's getting a push. I'm sure it was a good match as well, so mixed feelings, but it was probably good. Next up, a Christmas edition of Miz TV, wherein Miz again begged Shane McMahon to be his tag team partner. Shane said, well, this is the new era of wrestling, of WWE, when we listen to the fans, and then the fans all went yes, and then Shane agreed to be Miz's tag team partner, except apparently the fans weren't going yes, it was a mixed reception. So I don't exactly know what this is going to turn out to be, but I imagine it'll be Miz turning on Shane somewhere down the line. But I enjoy, I'm really enjoying Miz in this storyline, even if I'm not particularly enjoying the fact that we're meant to see Shane as the Terminator. He can just kick anyone's ass. But, Miz is involved, it's probably quite good. Next up, Jeff Hardy versus Samoa Joe, classic heel versus babyface feud here. Apparently, Jeff Hardy wins by countout, which I imagine is from Joe taking a walk and just going, I don't care about this match. Afterwards, apparently, Hardy tries to put him through the announce table, but gets choked out for his troubles. So it looks like Joe's on top for now, and I'm sure they'll meet maybe at the Rumble pay-per-view. I'm starting to pitch various matches for the Rumble pay-per-view, but at the same time, I'm thinking, no, I want to see them in the Rumble. Tricky. There's also quite a long way to go until the Rumble as well, but now on to the main event of Christmas Day SmackDown, the US title match between Shinsuke Nakamura, and the challenger Rusev, and Rusev bloody wins. He becomes the United States champion, and I can't believe it, of all of the days of the year to do it on Rusev Day as well. and Christmas Day, but primarily on Rusev Day as well. Hopefully this signifies the beginning of a renewed push for Shinsuke now that he's free of the mid-card title, and at the same time hopefully Rusev can do entertaining things with the US Championship. I'm quite confident that he can. It's just whether booking will help reinforce that. Who knows, but a pretty entertaining couple of episodes of Raw and SmackDown actually over the festive period. Raw especially looks pretty fun, a pretty fun show, could be the best one in a while. So I might actually check that out on Christmas Eve if I can't sleep because I'm just too excited for Santa Claus. I won't be watching the SmackDown one live because it's Christmas Day. Catch that later. Thanks very much for watching this video. I've been Jack from Cultaholic.com. You can follow me on Twitter if you want to at Jack the Jobber. You can follow all of us at Cultaholic and check out our Patreon as well, patreon.com/Cultaholic. And never forget, of course, if you haven't done so already, to hit subscribe and to join us.